At the end of February 2020, Italy entered a national lockdown in an attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19. The lockdown in spring 2020 brought the country to a standstill overnight. Among other things, in municipalities or the areas where at least one person was positive, the competent authorities were required to adopt containment measures adequate and proportionate to help stop the spread of the virus. The original containment measures included a suspension of any kind of demonstration or event in any kind of form of gathering in a public or private place. The suspension of educational services for children and schools and education trips for all ages, so all the schools were closed. The suspension of opening museums to the public. The application of quarantine with an active surveillance for anyone who had had close contact with someone who was tested positive for the virus. The obligation for those who entered Italy from areas at high risk to communicate it to the prevention department and to stay at home with proper quarantine measures. The suspension of work for some types of businesses and the closure of some kinds of commercial activities. This even led to the suspension of goods and services being transported around the country. One rule that was relaxed was regarding overstaying a visa due to the public health emergency. People could not be kicked out of the country if their visa or work papers expired during this time because all of the government offices were closed as well. Hello, my name is Lorna Holland. Welcome to VAFELTRE, our YouTube channel. I'm American from just outside of Washington, D.C. My husband, Dante, is Italian. We are tour directors, and we operate tours in Italy, Europe, and the East Coast of the United States. When we got here to Italy in the summer, businesses were open, although there were noticeably fewer tourists than in previous years. Europe was already closed to American tourists, and even the level of tourists from Austria and Germany, which are normally in this area, were a lot lower. The second wave of the pandemic began predictably in the fall. By November 6th, the government decided to implement new restrictions that they called a calibrated lockdown. They introduced a color-coded tier system that laid out the laws and regulations according to the prevalence of COVID-19 active cases in the local population. This decree, or the DPCM, is the decree of the President of the Council of Ministers. It is signed by the President of the Republic, and many of the original regulations come from the World Health Organization. Italians were quickly introduced to a new tier system of lockdown restrictions, varying from yellow to orange to red. The assignment of each color depends on the R levels. The R index is an index used to measure the ability of a pathogen to reinfect. Regions with an R level less than 1 are yellow. Regions with an R level between 1 to 1.25 are orange. And if the R level goes above 1.25, the area goes into red. There was, and still is, a lot of confusion about what these rules and regulations are. We created this video so that we can go through the regulations together. There will be links in the comments to some recommended websites with further information if you need it. Remember to subscribe and hit that notifications button so that you can see the weekly updates for each region. Please share the video with your friends and family so that they can better understand the situation. A few of the rules remain the same throughout Italy, regardless of what color your region might be. There's no travel between provinces except for a limited number of qualified circumstances. Face masks are required in all public buildings and when you're near somebody who's not from your own household, always keeping a distance of at least 1 meter between people. So let's get to these colors. Yellow, starting with the yellow zone. You can move freely within the region. You can't go outside the region, but there is a curfew in place from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. every day. If you need to go out after 10 p.m., then it has to be amongst a list of proven needs. Let's say you got out of work at midnight or an emergency, of course. We have to have what we call an auto-declaration or a self-certification with us whenever we're moving around during this restrictive time. If you're just moving around in yellow zones, You don't have to have the certification with you at all times. You pretty much only need it when if you happen to be moving out during the curfew time. Bars are open in the yellow areas. Now remember, here in Italy, a bar is not just some place you go to party at night. It's also where people go to get their breakfast in the morning. They go to get their cappuccino and their cornetto or their pastry. It's a place where people go to socialize. So bars here are open from morning to night. Right now, in the yellow areas, bars are only allowed to be open until 6 p.m., even for takeaway. The restaurants are also only allowed to be open until 6 p.m., which is a bit of a struggle for the culture here in Italy, considering that many restaurants don't even open until 7 p.m. because they tend to eat later over here. After 6 o'clock at night, restaurants are allowed to serve takeaway orders only. And there is the prevalence of delivery here in Italy has exploded. So you can have delivery or takeout after 6 p.m., but it has to be done by 10 p.m. It cannot be consumed near the place where you purchased it. So maybe you want to go get a slice of pizza, you can get the pizza and you can take it away, but you can't go to the piazza across the street and sit and eat it. And part of this is because, especially the younger kids were going and they were getting their pizzas, they'd all go out and sit in the piazza, and now all of a sudden you have 50 kids sitting out there with their masks off because they're eating in the piazza together, so it's considered a crowd. Museums in the yellow zones. This is the original rule. If you keep following to the end of the video, you're going to see that I've updated a little bit of this because things have changed as I've actually been making the video. But museums in the yellow zone are open from Monday to Friday, but not on weekends and not on holidays. Shopping centers are open on the weekdays, but they're actually closed on the weekends. Any pharmacies, tobacconists, and the food shops, a lot of times here, the grocery stores are actually attached to the shopping mall. Those are allowed to still be open regardless of the day of the week. Visiting friends and family in the yellow zone, if you are allowed to visit another house within your region once a day in the period, obviously from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., so outside of the curfew, and it's limited to only 2 adults who don't already live in the house. So if you're going to see your friend, a couple could go, or 2 friends could go to that house, but it could only be 2 single people, not with their whole family. The exception is that minor children under 14 are not counted in this. So at least in the yellow zone, people have been able to have a little bit of socialization time. All right, let's discuss orange zones and their regulations. We live in Trentino, and we've been orange for almost 3 weeks now. We are, like everybody else, we're not allowed to leave our region, but now instead of having freedom to move around our region, we're actually restricted to our own municipality or our own comune. If your comune has fewer than 5,000 people, you are allowed to go outside of your comune about 30 kilometers. So let's say that, especially here in the mountains, a lot of people are rural. You need access to the post office or a larger grocery store or something of that nature. You have a 30-kilometer perimeter. Within this rule, you can't go to the capital of your region. So we live in Trentino. We're actually not supposed to go to the city of Trento, which is the capital of our region. Also, public transportation is limited while you're in the orange zones. It has to be for a proven reason within your region, right? So public transportation during orange is also limited. It's supposed to only be for a proven reason. You have to remember, here in Italy, a lot of school children take the public bus or the train to get to school. This starts out even at a young age, going all the way through high school. So that is a proven reason. They're going to school. If you have to go to work and you need to take public transportation, that's a proven reason. Now, if you're taking the bus to go see a friend, that's not considered a proven reason. So it just has to be something that you can prove why you're doing it. The curfew is the same, the 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. And again, if you have an emergency or if you have work or something of that point, you have to have the auto certification with you saying why you're out after the curfew time. You can go to a second home if you own a second home. For a while, they had that blocked off as well. But you can go to the second home even if it's outside of your region. Some people are saying, okay, rather than be trapped in my little 2-bedroom apartment with my 2 kids and my husband in Milan, I have a larger house with a garden up in the mountains. I think that would be a healthier experience for my children. So you're allowed to do that. Or also we had feet and feet and feet of snow, and some people needed to go get their roofs uncovered from the snow so that the houses wouldn't cave in. So again, you're allowed to go to your second house if you have one. When you're moving around in orange, if you're going outside of your own comune, you're actually supposed to have the auto certification with you. So last week, if you look through some of our Life in Italy videos, you'll see that our daughter just got her glasses and she just got her trip to the dentist. So those were outside of our comune. All that we had to do is download the auto declaration form, fill it out, say where we were going, and we didn't get stopped. But if we had, that would have covered us because, again, medical is considered proven reason. So within orange regulations, you are still allowed to go and visit somebody else, but instead of versus the yellow zone, when you could go visit anybody in the region, now you're limited to only being able to visit somebody in your own comune. So let's say you have family members who live in the next comune over, you're not able to go actually visit your family members, even though you live close by. But if you live in the same comune, again, you have the limit of 2 adults are allowed to go visit another household each day, and the children under 14. It doesn't matter how many children there are, as long as they're all part of the same household, they can go visit. So schools are open within the yellow and the orange zones, and whatever they call it movements necessary to take the children to school and get yourself home from that. All of that is considered part of the learning process, so that's all allowed. Sporting and physical activities, as long as they're within your own municipality and outdoors, they are still allowed. The other exception to this is that competitive sports are also allowed. So gymnastics, for example, gymnastics lessons can still take place because that's considered competitive, and to a degree, it's also an individual sport. So gyms, swimming pools, and sports centers are all still closed, and they're all expected to be closed through the next DPGM. These color regulations are released each week, and it's been changing all around Italy. Dante did this funny little video about all of the colors changing all around the country, but it's actually our truth and our reality that week by week, we don't know if your region is going to be yellow or orange or red. If you are in a region and then the color changes that week, you're always allowed to go home. So if you're visiting family or something and your region changes to orange or red, you can still go back home. Now, the difference between the orange regions and the yellow regions is that now all of our bars are closed. They're considered, even though they have beverages, they don't really have a kitchen. They might make you a sandwich, but they're not a proper kitchen. All of them are closed. So this has left hundreds of workers without jobs. The restaurants are open, but only for takeaway or delivery. So you're no longer allowed to enter and actually eat inside of a restaurant. They are allowed to do the takeaway and delivery through 10 p.m. And those who have like a cafeteria system or a catering system, they're still allowed to open for lunch for the workers who may be coming in, but that's considered a little bit of a limited circumstance, and it's not quite the same as us just walking in the street, off the street as the general public. Our retail stores are still open, but shopping centers are closed on holidays and the weekends and days before the holidays. Schools are also still open. So we have, and that's going to be every age group. So going from nurseries and preschools all the way through high school and college, they're all open. Although the high schools and colleges, many of them are still doing distance learning, but they're considered still open and running. Now, let's go into the red zone. The restrictions tighten a lot more. If you're a resident of a red zone, you can only move even within your municipality for proven reasons. So, of course, you can still go to the grocery store, but you are actually supposed to have the auto certification with you saying that that's where you're going. All of your bars and restaurants are closed. You are allowed to move within your municipality, but you have to have that auto certification with you. If there is some kind of an emergency, then you would be putting that on your auto certification. One of the interesting things is that you don't actually have to list who you're going to see, because that's actually considered an invasion of privacy. But you would have to say, going to visit friend who fell or something like that. Public and private transportation is even more restricted. It has to be a reason of work, study, and health. You can still accompany children to school. It's basically take your child to school and come right back home. So within the red zone, retail shops are closed, but there are exceptions to that. So especially if you're in a red zone, it would be a good idea for you to look at the links that I have below in the comments. Some of the examples of things that are open are still going to be your food retailers, your pharmacies and parapharmacies, sort of like a CVS or a Boots to the rest of us, tobacconists, newsstands. Some of those places are open. But again, check down in the links if you're in a red zone so that you can better inform yourself of exactly what's open in your area. The shopping malls are closed. Inside of them, if they have a grocery store that's attached to the shopping mall, and again, the pharmacies, parapharmacies, and the tobacconists, those can be open inside of the shopping center, but otherwise it's closed to normal retail traffic. The outdoor markets, most of us know Italy thrives on its outdoor markets. It's always a great thing to go and buy your fresh cheeses and your fresh fish and your fresh vegetables. And I like my clothes. So all of those markets are closed during red, if you're in a red zone. Hairdressers and barbers are open, but you need to make an appointment so that they can limit the number of people who are there at a time. Beauty and massage centers are closed. And then the bars, restaurants, ice cream parlors, so you can't go get gelato, pastry shops, all of those are suspended. So but you do still have the chance to get takeaway, and you can still get delivery up until 10 p.m. Restaurants can sell the takeaway food, but again, your bars are going to be closed. Sports is suspended, and in the red zones, it's even suspended for outside sports. You can play sports on an exclusively outdoors and individual form. So you can go jogging, you can go walking, you can ride your bike, something that is individual. Physically, it has to be physical activity and near your home. We had stricter restrictions at Christmas time and around New Year's. And at that point, you could only go 100 meters from your house while you were in red zone. You are allowed to do some of these physical activities as long as you are close to your house. And the general rule of thumb in a red zone is that you have to be within 100 meters of your house. So you're still very limited to how far you can go. Now, this is in contrast to last spring when they had the shutdown and people were literally not even allowed to leave their own garden around their house. So at least 100 meters gives you a little bit of leeway. And for us, 100 meters actually means that we can get to the closest playground. So it's a good thing for us.